Do you think drone surveying would be easy? I did. I've been a land surveyor for 20 years and built a business around drones, but it was a grind. I made every mistake you can imagine. I wish I had known how to do it smarter. So to help you make drone surveying easier, here are 15 lessons I've learned that will help you avoid the same mistakes and get you real results faster. Lesson 1. When I first got into drone mapping, I bought a DJI Mini 2. With it, I tested workflows, tried out software, and even made some tutorials for this channel. People on LinkedIn mocked me saying I needed a bigger drone, but the truth is that little drone was enough for small construction sites I was working on back then. And before I eventually crashed it into a tree, that drone brought me over 10,000 pounds in revenue. So lesson number 1 is simple. Don't think the drone is everything. The workflow behind the drone matters far more than the drone itself. The drone is just a tool. Lesson number 2. I get a lot of emails from people who spend all their money on shiny new drone and then realize they've got nothing left for other things that matter just as much, like a solid computer, a GNSS antenna, and the right software. So lesson number 2 is don't blow all your money on expensive drone. When you set your budget, make sure it covers the whole workflow, not just the aircraft. In fact, for the clients on a tighter budget, I often recommend buying a stronger laptop first and picking up an older second-hand drone. That setup will take you a lot further than maxing out on a simple piece of gear. Lesson number 3. Scroll through YouTube or social media and all you see is people showing off drones. The problem? Clients watch that and think drone mapping is just about pretty pictures, and they don't understand why they should pay for it on a real project. So lesson number 3 is sell benefits, not drone. When you talk to clients, focus on outcomes, faster data, accurate topographical survey, usable CAD deliverables. That's the real value. Clients don't care what drone you fly, they care about what you can deliver for their project. Lesson 4. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people skipping ground control points or using far too few. They think an RTK drone will solve everything, but without proper control, your data set might look perfect on screen while being completely wrong in real world. I even published a test on this channel showing the difference in accuracy with and without GCPs using an RTK drone. The results were clear. You still need them. So lesson number 4 is use enough ground control points. GCPs are your safety net. They lock your survey into the right coordinate system and give you proof of accuracy. And it's not just my opinion. The American Society for Photogrammetry and Remote Sensing recommends at least 12 GCPs plus a few checkpoints. Yes, it takes more time in the field, but that extra effort saves you from the embarrassment and the cost of delivering bad data to the client. Lesson 5. A couple of years ago, I went to a site for a survey and realized I haven't charged my drone batteries. To stretch what I had, I thought I'd get away with less overlap than usually. I dropped it to 70-70. I installed and surveyed the GCPs, flew the site, came back to the office, and the orthophoto was a disaster. Holes everywhere, nothing stitched properly. And the little shortcut cost me big. I had to go back on site, reinstall the GCPs, and fly it over again. Twice the work for one simple mistake. So lesson number 5 is plan proper overlap. If you cut corners here, no amount of expensive software will save you. From my experience, a minimum of 70-70 overlap is safe for as-built survey. Get it right in the field and everything else from accuracy to client-ready deliverables become much easier. And always charge your batteries before going on site. Lesson 6. A client once emailed me saying their drone survey didn't match with the ground topographical survey. After 2 minutes of looking at the files, I spotted the problem, a coordinate system mismatch. Luckily, I was able to realign the drone survey to the topo and avoid any drama. But if that had slipped through, It could cause some serious delays and extra cost on site. So lesson number 6 is get your coordinate system right. Refineries, railways, airports, and some construction sites often use a local arbitrary grid to avoid distance deformation. If you don't confirm the system before you start, your perfect data set could be completely unusable. Always ask the client what system they need, double check in processing, and make sure your deliverables line up with theirs. Get it right, and your data will drop straight into their workflow without any headache. Never assume WGS84 is what the client wants. Always confirm their coordinate system before you fly. And by the way, nobody uses WGS84. Lesson number 7. When RTK drones first hit the market, a lot of people thought they were magic. Fly a mission, see RTK fixed on the screen, and assume the data is perfect. But here's what people forget. GNSS technology depends on signal coming from space. Signal dropouts, bad base logging, or mismatched timestamps can all throw your accuracy out the window. And those issues are more common than you think. So lesson number 7 is understand how RTK and PPK really works. If you don't know the workflow behind them, you won't know when things go wrong. Never take your RTK or PPK data as an absolute truth. Always understand what's happening under the hood, or your perfect survey could be completely wrong. And by the way, RTK fix doesn't always mean the RTK is correct. Lesson number 8. I see all the time people flying their drones and running the software on full automatic, treating every job the same. Then they hand over the data to the client and nothing lines up with the existing drawings. So lesson number 8 is don't trust the drone and software blindly. Good surveyors don't just process, they verify. And that means using checkpoints, quality control, and quality assurance, and cross-checks against known data. Because when something goes wrong, and it will be at some point, you will actually know how to spot it and fix it. Lesson number 9. A couple of years ago, I was flying a site with my DJI Air 2S using Map Pilot Pro. When I checked the images, I realized they were out of focus. It turned out the app had imported the focus settings I've changed earlier in DJI Fly. And it's not the only time this happened. Just a few weeks ago, I flew my Maverick 3 Enterprise and accidentally nudged the focus bar from the infinity to close up. I didn't notice until the end of the flight, which meant I had to refly the entire site. I've also had jobs where I forgot to adjust exposure and shutter speed for the light condition. The result? A whole batch of blown up images that were useless for processing. So lesson number 9 is master your camera settings. One mistake with focus, exposure, or shutter speed can ruin the entire dataset. Take 30 seconds before takeoff to check your settings. It's a lot quicker than refly the whole site. Lesson number 10. A very common misconception is that the most expensive photogrammetry software gives you the best accuracy and the best looking data. In reality, most software does the same thing, and in some cases, free options can produce results just as good, if not better. So lesson number 10 is learn photogrammetry principles before overpricing on software. What really matters is knowing the workflow, overlap, GCD, type points, and processing parameters. If you understand the principle, you can get professional results almost with any platform. So here's the thing, your clients won't care what software you use. They only care that the deliverables are accurate, fast, and usable. Lesson number 11. One of the biggest shocks for beginners is just how much data a short flight can produce. A 20-minute mission can easily leave you with hundreds of high-resolution photos, tens of gigabytes, and your average laptop will choke trying to process. I've had people message me saying their computer crashed halfway through processing, and it took 12 hours just to generate a point cloud. And by the time they deliver to the client, the deadline already blown. So lesson number 12 is respect data volume and processing time. Drone mapping isn't just about flying. It's about what happens after the flight. Make sure your hardware can handle the workload and always budget time for processing, quality control, and export. Lesson number 12. I get emails all the time from people who've just spent thousands on drones, software, and accessories. But when I ask them what service they actually offering, they don't have a clear answer. And after I check their websites, I see things like wedding photography listed right next to the drone mapping services. The problem is, when you try to offer everything, clients won't trust you as the expert in anything. And the gear you bought ends up sitting idle because it doesn't match a clear service. So lesson number 12 is know what service you actually offer before buying the gear or software. Decide first, are you solving problems in surveying, construction, or inspections? Once you know that, you can buy the right drone, the right software, and build a business around it. Lesson number 13. When I first started offering drone surveys, I was also impressed about the flashy 3D models, dense point clouds, and pretty orthophotos for 5 minutes. Then came the real question. Can I use this in CAD? And that's a very common mistake. People deliver what they think looks good, not what their client actually needs. Engineers, architects, and site managers don't care about pretty visuals. They need clean, usable data that drops straight into their workflow. So lesson number 14 is deliver what the client actually needs. Before you even fly, ask the client how they will use the data. Do they need contours, a surface model, CAD drawings, or coordinates in a specific system? Deliver that, not just a pile of images they can't even open. Lesson number 14. I know a lot of drone pilots who skip insurance when they're starting out, thinking it's just another expense. But here's the reality. Accidents happen. I've seen drones clip scaffolding, hit power lines, or even get taken down by a gust of wind. One incident like that without insurance, and you are personally on the hook for thousands of pounds. So lesson number 14 is get proper insurance. Professional indemnity, public liability, and equipment cover aren't just nice to have. They protect your business, your clients, and your reputation. Without it, one small mistake could end your career before it even begins. Lesson number 14. I get messages all the time from new pilots asking how soon they can start charging for drone work. And when I ask about their licenses and permissions, most of them haven't even looked into the regulation. The truth is, if you don't know the rules, you are flying blind, and it's only a matter of time before you get into trouble. I heard of pilots losing jobs, getting fined, or even having drones grounded on the site because they didn't have the proper paperwork. So lesson number 15 is know the rules and regulation. Whatever is flight permission, airspace restriction, or survey-specific compliance, you need to know what applies to you in your region. It keeps you legal, protects your clients, and shows you are professional, not just someone with a drone. Although all these lessons that I just taught you are incredibly powerful, if you are making this RTK mistake, then none of them are going to work. So watch this video next, where I'm showing you how to solve it.